we are back for another episode of the Racial Draft Podcast. I am your host, Michael Ford, joined by no one. Yeah, that's right. I'm doing it solo this week. Well, not this week, because if you stayed tuned, you heard our pretty long San Diego Comic Con recap, where I was joined by some fun guests. But, trying to double dip a little bit, and sometimes that leads to some negative consequences. So that is me giving you the recap of round 11 of the Racial Draft Supplemental Draft Season 4, or Racial Draft Season 4 Supplemental Draft. You get it. You get it. I'm going to quickly run down the picks from round 11. That would be Basil Carlo, aka Clayface, Joseph Chapman, aka Union Jack, Atuma of the Atlanteans, Carol Ferris, aka Star Sapphire, Everett K. Ross, Leonard Snart, aka Captain Cold, Medusa from the Inhumans, Jade Nguyen, aka Cheshire, Adam Warlock, and Parker Robbins, aka The Hood. But in addition to that, I need to fill you in on some approval ratings. And, starting us off is the 91% approval rating for Senor Magico. Yes, the Latinx delegation continues to rack up their points. And got to give those 20 points to Senor Magico. The people the people love it. The people are down for the magic. And I got to give those points away. So, moving on though, we move into some approval points that we're waiting to. Oh, no, find these like I said, the first pick was Basil Carlo, aka Clayface. Those of you may not know that this character, his comic name, came from Basil Rathbone and Boris Karloff, two kind of old school black and white classic movie stars who are known for playing villains. And why that's important, I think for the Swanamania delegation, is that in particular, Boris Karloff was not not a white man, not 100% white man, and because of his ethnic features, as it were, he was relegated to a lot of villain roles. Just because this is how the racism was set up back in the day. So you can imagine how Swana, Middle Eastern, whatever your preferred terminology is, brown, essentially, Basil Carlo might have been subject to some of the same uh, stereotypes. And maybe that leads him to experiment with the clay that that he thinks is going to help him lighten his skin, and it turns him into human clay. Yeah, your classic tragic hero storyline, and given the tragedy of Basil Carlo in recent years, I don't know. I feel like it's pretty on point, and the people agreed because the people gave it 100% approval rating. So that's your 20 points for Basil Carlo for Mina Clayface. We will keep it moving though. Going to try to keep it brisk this week. And speaking of brisk, we talked about this last week. The people weren't really on the side of Jewish Ironheart. I suspect it's because of a lot of factors, but in particular the fact that we talked about it in the last episode. Riri Williams was heavily featured in the Black Panther trailer. She's becoming more and more associated with Wakanda, and that tends to have people think that her primary affiliation should be black. That is a little bit of a knock against the black delegation for not making that draft pick. But it does lead to less than stellar approval ratings for Jewish Ironheart. So 58%, that's not going to cut it. But what is going to cut it is the 100% approval rating for East Asian Nico Minoru, a defensive pick. If you were paying attention to the Comic-Con news, you saw that Nico Minoru got featured in the upcoming Spider-Man freshman year cartoon. So it does look that her exposure is about to increase. I believe she's going to be featured in the Midnight Suns, um, both the video game and the new Midnight Suns comic that's going to be launching in the fall. So things are moving up for Nico Minoru, and it was smart of the East Southeast Asian delegation to you know make sure that their gal stays alongside, stays aligned properly. So gotta give her her due, gotta give her points. So that would be 20. Moving on, with a little bit of time left. I mean, who knows by the time you listen to this podcast whether you'll still have time to vote for the approval. But this one was a little bit controversial because it was the Polynesian delegation, and they selected Union Jack. And I know you gotta ask, what's Polynesian about Union Jack? And I too have these questions. Unfortunately, we didn't get a lot of explanation from Tamati, and the people were left to their own devices. So, left to their own devices, they are currently sitting at 66.7% approval, which means people don't see it. They're not really um, they're not really sure about what comes along with Polynesian Union Jack. Union Jack could potentially be a person of color, I would imagine, but at least a person of color who has some kind of alignment with the UK would be preferable. And we just didn't get such a backstory, even such a blurb in support of the backstory. Another disappointing um, approval rating, I guess we'll talk about. That's with respect to the black delegation. They selected, you know, he does sound like a 70s R&B star, Freddie Freeman, but alas, Freddie Freeman is generally traditionally depicted as Jewish, with some disabilities, and he turns into sometimes called uh, Captain Marvel Jr., but I think currently called Shazam Jr. However, neither of those juniors is a black junior in the eyes of most. So that would be 57% approval rating. And, that's not going to get it done. It's not going to get you any approval points. So we'll keep going. Um, Another character that doesn't seem to be catching on, and I can sort of understand why, because he too was featured in the Black Panther trailer, and that would be Atuma, the warlord of Atlantis, or I forget the name of the land that is going to stand in for Atlantis in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. But in that respect, maybe the white delegation would have been in a position to make their case, but currently, with a little over a day left, Atuma is sitting at 28.6% approval rating. White Atuma, that is. And yeah, I think people would prefer Latino Atuma based on both the casting and how he's depicted in the trailer. So we will keep it moving to something that did get approval, and this one was fairly close to my heart when I thought about it. I mean, Carol Ferris, aka Star Sapphire, rather Star Sapphire. She is typically traditionally been depicted as a white woman, but the South Asian delegation got involved, and they went ahead and scooped her up. And I think it's pretty pointed because in my research I realized that there's a sapphire that is in fact a star sapphire, one of the largest in history, and that is the Star of India. So it's only fitting that the Star of India, which is the one of the most prominent star sapphires of all time, would now be wielded in a manner of speaking by by a South Asian, by an Indian American, and Carol Ferris. So I like it. In terms of her depictions, there have been a few depictions of her that have maybe browned her up a little bit, and we were able to find some of those. So the people loved it. Was still with about a day remaining, sitting at 100% approval rating. So we can't award the points just yet, but it's looking good for the South Asian delegation. Moving on to where we can award 100% approval, and that would be the multiracial delegation. They drafted themselves both directly and via family chaining. They drafted the uh, mainstream Vixen, aka Mari McCabe, and they fell a little bit short of the threshold with only 85% approval rating for Mari McCabe. However, with their family chain, they were able to bring in a character that you might know from Legends of Tomorrow on the CW, and that would be Amaya Jaiwe. And she got 100% approval rating. Like the actress, multiracial, and I guess the people approved of that, to the tune of 100%. So we will award those bonus points to Amari. So Amaya. Here we are, moving right along. We are right there. Oh, this one is nice. 69% approval rating. Not quite in our threshold, but nice nonetheless. And that would be Native American Hellion. Yeah, Hellion, I don't know too much about the character. I know he's a telepath slash telekinetic who named himself after the Hellions team. But yeah, there wasn't a lot made in terms of what his reimagining as a Native American would bring to the table. And I guess again, sometimes people are left to their own devices, they have nothing to go on. They just instinctively go for the disapproval point. So didn't quite hit the threshold at 69%, but maybe next time for the Native American delegation. Moving on though, uh, we had another pick, and that pick was from the Black delegation. The Black delegation selected. Sorry, the Black delegation selected Medusa from the Inhumans. I know the Inhumans. Who are they? I, I, that's what Kevin Feige says. But there was an Inhumans TV show, ill-fated as it was. There was a time when the Inhumans were getting pushed in the comics. Now they're a little bit missing in action. But one of the more popular of the Inhumans is Medusa. She of the living hair, the prehensile strength in her hair follicles, and it's only there's some stereotypes in there about Black women having tough hair, but luxurious nonetheless. So the luxurious locks that are also pretty strong, that would be Black Medusa. But currently, a little bit short of the threshold, so there's time for you if you're feeling different, that you might want to dive in and get those approvals up, because right now it's at 87.5% approval. So just a couple votes, a couple approval votes will get that up around 90. So if you feel like Black Medusa is something cool that you'd like to support, go ahead and vote on our Twitter, Racial Draft Pod, and yeah, scroll on down and get your vote in for Black Medusa. They also family chained, the Black delegation family chained her sister Crystal, and maybe Cristal, as the rappers like to say it. So Cristal is currently sitting at 100% approval rating. So there you go. There's some approval for another Black Inhuman, and we'll see how it plays out. It could go a whole bunch of different directions depending on whether the votes come in one way or the other. So if you approve, go ahead and hit that approval button, strongly or somewhat approve. If you disapprove, you know, and you're not racist, go ahead and vote that way too. But yeah, the Inhumans have a very problematic past, but maybe a little diversity in the fold would do them some benefits and get them back on the right page. Kind of like what happened to the Eternals, if you know what I mean. So keep going, keep on pressing. In this one, again, I'm still upset about this. White Hawkeye. I mean, he should have gotten more points, guys. I mean, what is Hawkeye if not a white guy with all of the white privilege? But people felt otherwise, and they only gave him 57% approval, less of an approval rating than white people who voted for Trump. Just saying, just saying. So, what I'm hearing is that Hawkeye is less popular with white people than Donald Trump. Wow, wow. Speaking of white people, this one, I gotta be honest, very disappointed. One of my least favorite picks because this is a situation where a white character was selected to be changed from white, but there's so much about this character in both his inception, in both how in how he's used across the canon, that make it very clear that he was always supposed to be a white guy, and he was created by a black writer to embody white privilege. We are talking, in fact, about Everett K. Ross. Obviously, we have seen him depicted in a more sympathetic light by Martin Freeman in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but the Everett K. Ross of the comics is pretty clear that when Christopher Priest came up with him, he was trying to use him as a parody or more of a satire, if you will, of your point of view character, your white point of view character. And he was supposed to. I think he said that he was supposed to be a little bit of Matthew Perry, a little bit of Jason Bateman, very snarky, very entitled, and very uh, much the opposite of T'Challa. So, when the Native American delegation decided that they wanted to draft Everett Ross, the question has to be asked: How? How does a Native American, um, you know, you know, a Native American version of this character resonate? I mean, I feel like I know that when I talked about it with Toriano said that he would represent, you know, some self-hate, but I just don't think that gets you where you want to go. I think where that character needs to be is he needs to represent, you know, all of colonizer spirit. And, there's unfortunately, I just think that the optics, even someone who is a self-hating person of color, is still going to not bring the gravitas of full privilege to the table, particularly when it comes to dealings with Wakanda. There's just going to be too much of a dissonance, cognitive dissonance, when you have a particularly marginalized person, even if he wholly embraces American culture. It's just not going to do. It's not going to hit with the same intensity as an institutional white guy who's just completely unaware of his privilege. So, that's just my 2 cents. However, the people tend to be somewhat on my side in that there's a 40% approval rating right now for Native American Everett Ross, which, with a 20% somewhat disapproving and 40% strongly disapproving. So we shall see how things play out. But we will continue to move on, and we'll talk a little bit about what the multiracial delegation served up. What they served up is a character who you have seen depicted. You may not have known he was depicted as such, but you have seen him depicted in the Arrowverse as multiracial, as played by Wentworth Miller. That would be Leonard Snart, Captain Cold. Wentworth Miller famously has played characters that have passed before, but in recent years, he has talked about his Black heritage. And, he's also talked a lot about, being a member of the LGBT community as a gay man and wanting to bring that characteristic to his roles. And they were able to accommodate him in the Arrowverse by having his sexuality depicted, sexual orientation rather depicted. Obviously, that's a little bit beyond the purview of the racial draft, being it that it's the racial draft, but it's still worthwhile, and but very popular incarnation of the character. Haven't yet seen this version completely make its way to the comics, but nonetheless, a popular incarnation of the character, and currently sitting at 100% approval rating, and that's Leonard Snart, Captain Cold. And with that, also came their family chaining. Lisa Snart, the Golden Glider, not typically depicted as multiracial, but she too, theoretically, could somewhat pass like Wentworth. So the people 100% approval for her, but that's the breakdown with that is 80% strongly approved, 20% somewhat approved, but still 100% approval rating. So let's see if the snarts remain in the positive realm of approval, in terms of with the people. We move on to the East Southeast Asian delegation, who made a pick and they family chained up the wazoo. But we will start with their defensive pick, who is Jade Nguyen, aka Cheshire. You might know her if you're a fan of Young Justice. Young Justice, she is a little bit of an assassin, anti-hero type character, femme fatale, if you will, who has a romance with um, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, she has a romance with Roy Harper, aka the Red Arrow or Arsenal, depending on the day of the week. They have a child together, and that's kind of awesome. We will get to that later. But yeah, Jade Nguyen, that in addition, that was also in the comics where she had the romance with Roy Harper. So she's Vietnamese in the comics. They made her Vietnamese. Uh, in terms of continuing the defensive pick of the racial draft, and she's currently sitting at 100% approval on that. So good on the East Southeast Asian delegation. But that they didn't stop there, guys, because they also family chained her, and via the family chaining, they also chose her sister, who you might also know from the Young Justice television show, and that would be Artemis Croc, aka Tigress. Now, Tigress has not always been depicted as either Vietnamese or um, biracial. Again, in this version, because she was racially drafted and family chained, this version of her will be fully Asian, will be fully Vietnamese, and so far the people are 100% approving of a fully Asian Artemis, aka Tigress, Artemis Croc. Um, Additionally, with that family chain, we have to talk about her. We have to talk about their mother, who would be Paula Nguyen, aka Huntress, also depicted on the Young Justice series. She has been depicted in the cartoon, in the Young Justice cartoon. She's depicted as Vietnamese. In the comic, a little bit, different versions of the character. Some mostly depicted as a white woman, but the Paul Nguyen version of the character, I believe, did make it into at least one depiction. Also, I think it was depicted as such on the Stargirl cartoon. So they're trying to do a real world racial draft, as it were, and and I guess for that reason, the people are currently sitting at 100% approval rating, with 100, all 100 strongly approving. So that leaves only the father. That's right, the dad. You might know him as Sportsmaster, which is a weird name. You also might know him as Lawrence Croc, traditionally depicted as a white man who knows martial arts. But we're kind of off that, aren't we? White man, master of martial arts, a sports master, as it were. But no, via the family chain, via the racial draft of his daughter, we went ahead and got ourselves a fully Asian Lawrence Croc. I mean, he can pick an anglicized last name. Sure, he wears a mask. We don't know. So right now, the people sitting at 100%, fully approving of Southeast Asian Sportsmaster. And that leaves one more family chain character. And that family chain, my friends, is Leon Harper, the daughter of Jade Harper. I'm sorry, the daughter of Jade Nguyen, also the daughter of Roy Harper. And she was in the comics for a while as a very small child, but recently has been depicted as a little bit older. And there are some rumors that she might come back as the Red Arrow. I'm sorry, as the Red Canary. Those are only rumors, though. Has not been confirmed. However, in the event that she does, it's smart of the East Southeast Asian delegation to go ahead and claim her for whatever reason. And currently also sitting at 100% approval. So we shall see how things go with these characters. But that could be potentially be a family of five, all acquired or confirmed by the East Southeast Asian delegation. Good on them. And that brings us to some more approvals, but not quite at the threshold. And that's Polynesian Gladiator of the Shar. 85% approval. Just quite, not quite there. Not quite there. But this might have been another situation where it would have been worthwhile for the Polynesian delegation to talk up the Polynesian influence that maybe he wanted to imbue the Shar with. It would have been. I mean, comedy. You've been letting us down. You gotta bless us with some backstories in season 5. You gotta bring back the feeling, man. We were all missing it. The fan base, me, the other delegations. Just gotta do your thing, man. That's why it's one of the reasons that we love you. Not the only reason, but it's one of. So that could have got those 5 points, man. But at last, 85% approval. That brings us to the Jewish delegation. They selected Adam Warlock, and Adam Warlock has been getting a push as of late. He's going to be featured in the new Guardians of the Galaxy film. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. We saw a little bit of him, little pics of him leaked, played by Will Poulter, who I don't believe is Jewish. However, the Jewish delegation has chosen to imbue Adam Warlock with Jewishness, and the people thus far do approve. We're sitting at 90% approval. That's 50% strongly approve and 40% somewhat approve. So if this holds, it's going to be some bonus points for Jewish Adam Warlock. We talked a little bit about how white Clint Barton, white Hawkeye, did not win the people over. Well, what's also not winning the people over is his brother, Barney Barton, aka Trickshot, also sitting at 57% approval. And that's definitely disappointing for sure. So that brings us to the final pick of the round, the 11th round, and that would be Parker Robbins, aka the Hood. Now, I think that part of what's at work here is that 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 an actor who is Latino will be playing the Hood in MCU. I want to say his name is, wait for it, guys, Anthony Ramos. Anthony Ramos has been confirmed as cast for the Ironheart series, but as of yet, we still don't know who he's going to be playing. And I think that Carlos was thinking if it was going to be confirmed this weekend at Comic Con, that there would have been some points in the offing. But unfortunately, it was not confirmed. So we're left to use our own devices to decide whether we, on the face of the character on his own in the books, could be Latino, whether as of now, slightly short of the threshold, 87.5%, but still within striking distance of getting to the threshold. So I mean, Carlos has time to lobby. He has time to get people on board with the idea of Latino Parker Robbins. So things will probably tilt in his favor, particularly if any news breaks or rumors break about Anthony Ramos occupying the Hood. Not to stereotype, but this is a guy who wears a hood and carries 2 guns and is a street level character. I could see it. I suppose I could see it. So, person of color as the Hood. The jokes write themselves, kind of people. That brings us to just some final approval points. The Shadow King. You probably know him if you watch the Legion television series. Where Amal Farouk, sorry, did his thing. He He's a really popular character, and and yeah, so 100% approval rating for the for keeping him as a Swana character. As I said before, traditionally in the comics, he's been Egyptian. Um, However, he was played by an Iranian actor. So, you know, I think there's a certain amount of leeway there in terms of how he could be depicted. A lot of people were a fan. I one of them, as how he was depicted in live action, and I would like to see that depiction kind of going forward. So either way, he's still representing the Swana community. So 100% approval rating. Got no issues with it. That believe, like I said before, the 100% approval rating for Basil Carlo, and that yeah, that concludes our week. I mean, we just kind of ran through it. We didn't have a lot of characters, well, a lot of things to sort of slow us down as we ran through these character recaps. You know, I obviously I like to have some guests here so that we can go back and forth with some conversation. Unfortunately, things didn't work out that way. Hopefully, you were able to stay with us and rock with us, and hopefully next week we'll come back with a little bit more hilarity, and we'll come back with some cool, nerd news and racial draft news in the same program. Because hey, this is the final week of the supplemental draft, week 12 of the racial draft supplemental draft. So look forward to picks from week 12, maybe some trades in week 12, and then we'll be hitting the home stretch of this fourth season of the racial draft. Just cleaning up some final business as it looks like Carlos is going to run away with first place. But the battle for second place, the battle for third place continues to reign, and who knows how things are going to shake out. Guys, this has been a fun ride, albeit a quick ride. But until next time, all things are possible.